All right, what's up, guys? It's Analyst, and we're back for week 7 this time. So, this week, what we're doing is the same as last week. You guys really seem to like having these spreads and the totals and everything here. So, we're going to continue with that. I got a lot of feedback on this. Not only did you guys say you love this, you also loved the DFS content that I added into it. So, I haven't looked too much into the prices like I did last week. But I will say some of my favorite picks. Someone wanted me to make a whole lineup, but I mean, if you just listen to the names I point out and the guys I like and the values I like, you could probably create one from that. Someone else also wanted me to say who I think is going to win each game. So just picking them. So I could add that at the end. I could just at the end of each matchup just point out who I think is going to come out on top. So that's not really too big of a deal. But all right, we can get right into this. So you guys know the deal. Going over each matchup. We're gonna start with the Thursday night game here. We got the New York Giants heading into Philly. Philly are 4.5 point favorites. There's a 45 point total. Um, not too high of a, not too much of a high scoring game. If you look down here, we got a 57 point total with Green Bay and Houston. That's gonna be a pretty juicy game. But going back to this matchup here, for the Giants, Daniel Jones, I'm really starting to lose faith in this guy. He just, I think he has 2 passing touchdowns on the entire year at this point. We're going into week 7. They have not had a bye. Last week he had a decent touchdown pass to Darius Slayton. He didn't really throw the ball that much at all. There weren't really that many plays in the game, so not looking good for Slayton. Not for Slayton, for Jones. But I don't know if you guys can tell I'm tired. I either have to record this at like 8 o'clock in the morning or like 11 o'clock at night. So just trying to choose which one works the best. But okay, so over here, Daniel Jones, don't really have any faith in him. As far as the running backs go, right? Devontae Freeman, the last week he had over 70% of the snaps, which was among the top 10. I did my running back snaps. If you guys follow me on Instagram, you already know that I do that each week. So Devontae Freeman was top 10 in snaps last week at the running back position, and he's getting touches. He had over 20 touches last week, and I think that's going to continue. So I'd consider him. It's not the best matchup, but I'd still consider him a low running back 2/flex and every week starter at this point. As far as the wide receivers go, Darius Slayton injured. He's questionable for this matchup. I'm expecting him to play, but he was pulled from last game because he did re-injure himself. The risk is high for him to do that, so I'm not really looking for Darius Slayton in this matchup. Darius Slayton against Darius Slay, so that's fun. But yeah, I don't like this game for Darius Slayton. Sterling Shepard potentially coming back. It looks like he is going to be back for this game, getting pulled off IR. That'll probably be announced tomorrow. But yeah, I mean, I'm not a huge fan of Sterling Shepard either, coming off injured reserve. But you got to think the ball's got to get down the field somehow. So Evan Ingram, I had some faith in him last week. He didn't really pull through. A big reason for that was because the Giants Daniel Jones didn't really throw the ball all that much. He didn't really complete that many passes. I think he completed under 20 passes. They had less than 25 pass attempts. So, yeah, it just wasn't really that many opportunities at all for Evan Ingram last week. And he is fully healthy. So if they want to move the ball, they kind of got to go through him. So at least that's what you would think. Ingram and Freeman probably the only Giants I really want in my lineup. I'm not liking either of these defenses. Graham Gano, he's someone I'm also looking at for that DFS. Sometimes the kickers can come through, and Gano has been automatic from 50 plus. So I do like Gano in this matchup, which sounds weird, kicker talk, but it's whatever. As far as the Philadelphia Eagles go, Carson Wentz, he's currently the quarterback 9, and he's had no offensive line, no wide receivers. Miles Sanders, he's going to miss some time. Zach Ertz hasn't done much, and he's going to miss some time. Dallas Goedert is out. So Wentz has become the quarterback 9 with nothing. He's had no help. So I think Wentz can have a really good game here. He's going to be my captain for the showdown matchup for DFS. So I'll have Carson Wentz in there. I think he's a decent start this week as well if you're in a tough spot at quarterback. Running back wise, Miles Sanders is going to be out this week. Boston Scott, the lead running back, who cares? He was the lead running back week 1. He didn't really do much of anything. I mean, he is a starting running back, so when it comes to DFS, he'll probably end up being in my lineup. But he's outside my top 25 running backs in PPR for this week, so not very big on Boston Scott. Probably going to be some weird committee between him and Corey Clement, and I'm sure they have some practice guys that they're practice squad guys. They'll pull up and give them work as well. But wide receiver wise, Travis Fulgham. I mean, I had doubts last week. I told you guys, if he did it again against Baltimore, then he's the real deal. And guess what? He did. And he had 10 targets as well. So Travis Fulgham is seeming to be the real deal for the Philadelphia Eagles. Deshaun Jackson is going to be back. I'm not worried about that for Fulgham's value. I think, if anything, Deshaun Jackson can take away the coverage from James Bradbury, which is bodes a lot better for a guy like Travis Fulgham. So, yeah, I think Travis Fulgham's definitely going to be in my lineup, and he's definitely a good flex start this week if you're in a tough spot. Just make sure, guys, if you are planning on starting Travis Fulgham in your leagues this week, put him in your wide receiver spot. Do not put him in your flex. The reason you do that, if you aren't already aware, is because if for some reason, let's say you have Travis Fulgham in your flex, and then your wide receiver 2 is out, or your wide receiver 2, there's something COVID, blah, 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 they can't play. The only person you have on your bench is a running back. Well, if that wide receiver was in your flex, you could sub in a running back. But because when it comes to the Sunday game, that guy ends up being out, you can only sub in other wide receivers. So it just gives you more flexibility to have your players from Thursday in your running back or wide receiver spot. Do not keep them in your flex. And think about it this way, too. It's like, well, Travis Fulgham, I probably wouldn't start him over a guy like Allen Robinson. Sure, that's true. But at the same time, like, if you're already starting him Thursday, you're going to start him no matter what. So just throw him in your wide receiver spot, throw whoever else it is in your flex, and just, if something else happens, you have the ability to change it up. That's what flexes are for. So that's that. I'm not interested in Deshaun Jackson. He hasn't done anything. Tight end wise, Zach Ertz also out this game. Dallas Goedert has not returned from IR yet. Richard Rodgers seems to be the next guy up, if anyone's paying attention. He had 3 catches for 36 yards last week. So, I mean, in DFS, I think he's like 5,000 this week for the showdown matchup, which is not bad. I just don't think he's guaranteed any production. It could be, I don't know, the whole situation with Joshua Perkins, if he's even with the team. But I know they like him as well. So he's not guaranteed to be the starting tight end, but he would be the favorite if you're looking for a tight end. And if you're really desperate this week, you could do okay. So, yeah, I'm taking Philly in this game. I think they're just at home. Carson Wentz, he's getting Lane Johnson back potentially, which is going to be big for him. And Deshaun Jackson, if anything, helps spread the field and take coverage away from Fulgham, whatever. So, and it's the Giants. So I'll take the Eagles here. I think they'll. I'm not going to get into the totals and the spreads, but I'd probably do the under for the total. And I might take the Eagles minus 4.5. So let's move on to this game here. We got the Cleveland Browns going to Cincinnati. Now, if I told you a year or two ago that the Browns and the Bengals would have a 50-point total, you'd probably call me crazy. But here we are. It's 2020. Cleveland Browns, Baker Mayfield, he was not able to finish the game against the Steelers this last week. He had a pretty serious rib injury. I think he got pulled in like the third, fourth quarter. He just was not able to finish the game. So he's going to be questionable leading up to this matchup. But even if he's out, I feel like Case Keenum's a plug and play. Like I don't see that much of a difference with Case Keenum in the game. Running back wise, Nick Chubb's been out. So if you've been starting Kareem Hunt the last couple weeks, you've been pretty disappointed. But I think this is the week where he can make up for it. He's had some really bad matchups over the last 2 or 3 weeks with Chubb out. So this is a good chance for him to get back on track. We've seen him. He's essentially the workhorse in this backfield with Chubb being gone. It's not really that much of a timeshare. D'Ernest Johnson has been getting some decent snaps and touches, but I'm not worried about it. Kareem Hunt's going to be an auto start this week. He's going to be in a lot of people's DFS lineups, and rightfully so. So I do like Kareem Hunt this week. Wide receiver wise, between Odell and Jarvis, I mean, if you're starting one of those two, it's going to be Odell. He's been consistently getting more targets than Jarvis. He threw the ball a couple times, or Jarvis threw the ball. I don't even know the whole situation with that. They have other players throwing the ball. But if I'm picking one wide receiver out of the two, it's going to be Odell. It's a good matchup. So I believe he has upside, but at the same time, that floor is also almost non-existent. So play Play Odell at your own risk. I'm not too high on him, and Jarvis Landry I'm not really considering even in a decent matchup. So with the points, I think they could beat the total on this, and if they do, then you'd have to assume guys like Odell are going to score, and Jarvis might be a little more involved. So I'm not totally against it. Another guy who's been getting pretty involved lately is Austin Hooper. I had my doubts about him going into the year with David Njoku there and just how much they're going to run this ball and how little there was actually going to be available in terms of targets when you have Odell, when you have Jarvis Landry, when you have both those running backs out of the backfield. You also have David Njoku. So I had my doubts about Austin Hooper, but he's been very consistent over the last 3 or 4 games. I'm in a position where I have to start him in a league, and I think he could be a top 10 tight end this week. So I mean, it's an easy matchup, and it could, like I said, it could end up being a fairly high-scoring game. So I'm okay with Austin Hooper. I think he's a fine start this week. As far as the Bengals go, I mean, Joe Burrow, I really like him in this matchup. He's had some tough matchups, and now he finally has a chance to let loose on the Cleveland Browns. Joe Mixon, he's currently dealing with a foot injury. He was pulled from the last game against the Colts after he scored. He ended up coming back into the game in the second half and had a few carries. So, and that was after his injury. So because of that, that would make me feel like there's no reason he misses this week. He did not practice on Wednesday. Could just be a rest day. If he doesn't practice tomorrow, then I'll be really concerned. But if he gets in a limited session and then maybe full on Friday or even another limited Friday, I wouldn't be concerned at all. So Joe Mixon, I truly do believe he's going to play. But just keep an eye on those practice reports. If he's not practicing on Thursday, if he's not practicing on Friday, then I would start looking for another option or try to acquire Gio Bernard. So, yeah, but either way, Joe Mixon playing, I do really, really like this matchup against Cleveland. Joe Mixon also had 2 very bad matchups against the Colts and the Ravens, and he was still able to put up a 14 and 15 point performance thanks to some passing volume and a touchdown. So in an even lighter matchup, I think Joe Mixon could have a 20-point week. It's not going to be like crazy 40-point week he had against Jacksonville, but I do really like Joe Mixon this week if he does play. Wide receiver wise, AJ Green came back out of nowhere and led the team in targets, but I'm not expecting that to stick. Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, both great starts. AJ Green, like I said, he did come back from the dead and have 11 targets last week, but, play at your own risk. This guy's been appearing, disappearing, and T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd have just been better wide receivers, so I'd rather start those guys, but, AJ Green can still be a desperate flex option if you're in that type of situation. Drew Sample, not really worth talking about. We had some hope after that one game a while ago where Joe Burrow had to throw the ball like 60 times. But since then, he hasn't really shown up. So I'm not really looking at Drew Sample. Yeah, so who I think is going to win this game? Cleveland is 4-2. Cincinnati, I think Cincinnati might sneak this one out. I don't think Baker's going to be 100%, and I think Burrow's going to start getting it rolling. I'm not too confident in the Cincinnati defense, but yeah, I think Joe Burrow could squeak one out here. Next game here, we got Dallas and Washington. Wow. Dallas is 1-point favorites against Washington. What the hell? Wow. Dak being gone truly did have an impact. I didn't even notice that when I was looking at this. So, wow. Okay. I'm very surprised by that because Washington has been awful. 46-point total, pretty low for Dallas. Um, yeah, so let's get into this. So Dallas going into Washington. Andy Dalton, he made up for it in garbage time last week against the Cardinals. He ended up getting a touchdown and put up something respectable. That if you ended up having to stream him, he didn't lose your week for you. But I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this. I mean, Dallas's entire offensive line at this point has just it's just gone. Zach Martin last game got hurt. Travis Frederick retired. Leo Collins has been out. And I believe I'm even missing a couple. So Dallas just has no offensive line. And Washington has Chase Young and others. And the Cardinals got a ton of sacks on Dallas last game because Andy Dalton just doesn't know how to get rid of the ball. And that was a problem with him in Cincinnati as well. So when you got Chase Young in that backfield and other guys, and the Cardinals last week, they lost Chandler Jones. They didn't have their best pass rusher, and they still got a ton of sacks against him. So that being said, I don't really have that much faith in Andy Dalton, but I do think he's still going to be forced to pass the ball a ton. Ezekiel Elliott was very disappointing last week, including 2 fumbles, but there's no way in hell you're sitting Ezekiel Elliott. Wide receiver wise, Michael Gallup, he's not even startable at this point. Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb seem to be okay. I'd feel more comfortable with CeeDee Lamb just because Andy Dalton has more of a tendency to target the slot. So I do like CeeDee Lamb. Amari Cooper, I think he's wide receiver 2, flex type of player. I think he can end up being okay, especially with garbage time, if that ends up being a thing or whatever. However this game shakes out to be. Tight end wise, Dalton Schultz was getting a lot of targets. So if you're in a desperate type situation, Dalton Schultz might be worth a look. I just think Andy Dalton's going to be forced to pass the ball a ton. On the flip side, I'm expecting a lot of 3-and-outs in this game. So on the flip side, you get the Washington football team. Kyle Allen, if you're desperate, I'm not sure his price on DraftKings, but I mean, Dallas's defense is just as bad. So Kyle Allen, last week I think he was 5,100. If he's around that price range and you're trying to go cheap at quarterback, Kyle Allen may not be terrible. As far as the running backs here, J.D. McKissick has been stealing the show lately. I have Antonio Gibson in a few leagues. I'm starting him this week. Dallas's run defense, as we saw with Kenyon Drake last week, is awful. And I mentioned that too. I mentioned how Kenyon Drake would be startable because of how bad Dallas's run defense is. So if Antonio Gibson can get some early success, then I think he could actually be a pretty good start this week. So I do like Antonio Gibson. J.D. McKissick, if you're in a spot where you need a desperate flex, he's been getting a ton of targets from the backfield. So J.D. McKissick, I'm okay with if you're desperate, if you're like really desperate. Wide receiver wise, Terry McLaurin, I think this is going to blow up game for him. He had over 10 targets last week. So just goes to show Kyle Allen is still looking his way. No matter who's at quarterback, they're still looking for Terry. And Terry's also had a lot of bad matchups recently. Last week it was against the Giants, and he was against Bradbury, who's been one of the best corners in the NFL this year. So, I mean, now he's going to have a chance to break free against Dallas. So I really, really like Terry this week. Not really interested in anyone else. I mean, Logan Thomas, he had a touchdown last week. I think they had him in the Wildcat last week as well. They're just trying to get him involved. So, if you're desperate, Logan Thomas at tight end, maybe he's got something with Kyle Allen. And one other thing, too, with this Washington team as a whole, you can't really take what happened 2 weeks ago when Alex Smith came in. You can't really take that. You can't really take anything away from that game. Not a lot of success all around. That was Kyle Allen's first start with the new team. He got hurt. Alex Smith's first start from like 2 years of just almost losing his leg being in the game. So I think last game was a very big reveal about what you can take away from Kyle Allen's Washington team. And I mean, in that game, Logan Thomas was involved. He caught a touchdown. So Logan Thomas, if there's a connection brewing there, then he could end up being a thing for the rest of the year. So I do like Logan Thomas if you're desperate. And Who do I think is going to win here? I think I want to be bold and say Washington just because I want Andy Dalton to lose so bad. I have nothing against Andy, but I, I'm really rooting for Dak, and that's the biggest thing. Because if Andy Dalton does well and Dallas wins and they're first in the division, then, Dallas just does not deserve to be first. And I like Ron Rivera too. So, I want Washington to win. I think they could squeak it out. I mean, a 1-point favorite, clearly the odds makers are not too confident in Dallas either. And if they can use their defensive line correctly and put Andy Dalton in pressure, they're not going to be able to get anything going offensively. Zeke's not going to have any sort of line to help him either. So I think Washington wins this one as well. I'd take them. Oh, wait, Washington's favorites. What am I talking about? Wow, Washington's favorites. How did I not see that? I'm sorry, guys. I was looking at it backwards. But, yeah, so I would take Washington -1. Wow. What a world. We got this juicy hunk of a matchup right here. Green Bay and Houston. 57.5 over-under. The biggest of the week. So, a lot of studs here. Aaron Rodgers, I think he's going to bounce back here. Aaron Jones, he's my running back 1 this week. Running back 1. Houston's run defense is abysmal. So, and I think for Green Bay to get back on track, you kind of want to get the ball to your best players, and that's Devontae Adams and Aaron Jones, both who I really, really love this week. So, Devontae Adams, my wide receiver 1, Aaron Jones, my running back 1, and Aaron Rodgers is going to be a top 5 quarterback for me. So, liking all those guys. Not too interested in anyone else from Green Bay. I know Marquez Valdez-Scantling has been pretty good in the air yards department. But I'm not too sold on him. At tight end, Robert Tonyan, he didn't have that big game last week, but nobody did. Nobody did for the Packers. And Tonyan still put up like 6, 7, 8 points. So, and if Aaron Rodgers is throwing 4 touchdowns, I just think there's a good chance Tonyan catches one of them. Right? So, just keep that in mind. A high point total. Tonyan can be okay this week, and he was still among the top in terms of targets last week. So Tonyan is still the tight end 1 on this team, and he has a chance to be the number 3 target, which isn't bad. As far as Houston goes, Deshaun Watson's been doing great since Bill O'Brien left. David Johnson, in the 2 games Bill O'Brien has been out, David Johnson has played 70% of the snaps or better. Green Bay does not have a great run defense at all. They got torn up by Ronald Jones. Wide receiver-wise, Brandon Cooks and Will Fuller are both auto starts until proven otherwise. It's going to be a high-scoring game, and Will Fuller's getting a ton of targets, and Brandon Cooks is getting a ton of targets as well. I mean, this is just how they're using their offense now, which is great, and it's working. Their defense hasn't been getting the job done, but their offense is working, so I really like that. Tight end wise, Darren Fells over the last 2 weeks has also been really, really good. The only thing is Jordan Akins might be coming back this week, so if he is, it kind of puts a little bit of a damper on him. But if you're in a tough spot, like for me, I have Noah Fant in a couple leagues, and I have a league where I have Noah Fant and Evan Ingram. So, or I have a league where I have Jonnu Smith and Evan Ingram, because Jonnu is someone who also may not play this week. But, so rather than throwing Evan Ingram in my lineup and being like, okay, I can't take the risk on Jonnu, I'm just going to let it play out. And if I need to, I'll pick up Atkins, I'll pick up Fells, and I'll hope one of those guys, because both of them are on waivers, probably Fells, but I'll hope one of them can get a touchdown or whatever it is. So yeah, I'm taking that route if I'm desperate. I think Green Bay is going to win, get back on track. But if Green Bay shows up like they did last week, then Houston could sneak away with it. But I'm not too high on that. Oh boy. Buffalo and the Jets. Wow, the Jets. Buffalo's 13.5 favorites. By the way, next week, the early spread for the Jets and Chiefs, the Kansas City Chiefs are 22-point favorites, which is insane. 22-point favorites, the Chiefs over the Jets. I think their record is 27. So 27-point favorites is the record. I'm not sure who holds the record, but just next week there's zero faith in the Jets being able to cover against Kansas City. So for this week, yeah, I'm feeling the same way. I mean, the Jets are just awful. Might be the. Are they worse than the 0-16 Browns? I don't know. I think they have the potential to be better than them, but this, the expectations are very low. As for Buffalo, Josh Allen, I do really like Josh Allen this week. He could bounce back. 2 tough games. The Bills are pissed. I think Josh Allen is going to bounce back here. Devin Singletary, I think he has a chance to bounce back too. He had 70% of the snaps, even with Zach Moss being back. So I do like Devin Singletary. Wide receiver wise, Stephon Diggs, he's been an every week starter. You got to throw him in. The other wide receivers, John Brown, could be a bounce back game for him. I think Gabriel Davis has carved out more of a role, and Cole Beasley has been very consistent in the slot. So just be aware, it could end up being one of Davis, Beasley, or Brown. So if you're desperate and you want to take a shot on one of them, I do like Beasley as a more consistent PPR option, but Brown has the upside, and then Davis is like desperate rookie, flex potential. Don't like any of the tight ends in Buffalo. New York, let's make this quick. I don't care if it's Flacco. I don't care if it's Darnold. Blah. Running back wise, LaMichael Perine is taking over this backfield. I don't care. Blah. Wide receivers, Jameson Crowder. He's the one I care about. He's been very consistent. He already played Buffalo, and he had over 100 yards against them. I believe it was week 1. So, Crowder, you're firing him up if you have him. The Buffalo run defense has not been good. If you're in DraftKings, I don't know how much LaMichael Perine is this week in DraftKings. I have to check. But if he's dirt cheap, he might get you like 10. He could get like 10 points this week. Just because we saw how bad Buffalo's run defense is. And on top of that, if Perine, he had like 55% of the snaps and Frank Gore had like 30. If he can get more involved as a pass catcher, then, I mean, it could be like a Myles Gaskin, like come out of nowhere and have some value type thing. What also helps for the Jets is potential rookie debut for Denzel Mims, one of my favorite rookie wide receivers. Not really looking that way anymore because of just the Jets, but Denzel Mims could potentially be back this week. Brashad Perryman is back, so we'll see. I want to say things are looking up, but they're just not. Chris Herndon hasn't done anything. Didn't see a single target last week, so if you still have him on your bench, you can drop him. Maybe he'll get traded. Who knows? The Jets are having a sale on every single player in their lineup, so we'll see how that goes. Who would I think is going to win? Buffalo. No second thoughts about that. Okay. Pittsburgh against Tennessee. Tennessee is favorites in this one. Wow. Put some respect in Tennessee. 50-point total. Not bad. I think it's going to be more of a high-scoring game. Who else had a 50-point total? Cleveland and Cincinnati. I think Pittsburgh and Tennessee is going to be more high-scoring than Cleveland-Cincinnati. I would put money on that. So I'd say more of a high-scoring game here. As far as Pittsburgh, I think both these quarterbacks can have a good game. Ben Roethlisberger, he can throw 3 or 4 touchdowns. That's what I said last week. He ended up doing it. Chase Claypool caught one of them, as I said. So that worked out. You got Deontay Johnson coming back this week. On DraftKings, Deontay Johnson is literally, I think it's $4,200. Dirt cheap. I was looking to start Deontay Johnson last week before he was declared out. But if he's playing in this game, $4,200, that's dirt cheap. I don't know how Juju is still as high as he is, but I think I'd have to look at Deontay Johnson as a flex upside and definitely very, very good value for DFS. So I'm looking at that. James Conner has been very consistent. He's a weekly start. Wide receiver wise, Chase Claypool, I mean, until proven otherwise, he seems like the wide receiver 1 on this team. Juju Smith has taken a huge step back, so Claypool's got the upside. He doesn't need a ton of volume, which is also good. Even with Deontay back, he's definitely still worth a flex consideration. Juju, look, if you have another decent option, then throw them over Juju. I mean, he just can't be trusted. And of course, I say that now he's going to blow up, but point being, he just can't be trusted. I just can't put him in my lineup. If you're a Juju owner, he has just frustrated you week after week. Just throw him on the bench and get it over with. I'd start Travis Fulgham over Juju this week. So that gives you my idea on him. Tight end wise, Eric Ebron, as inconsistent as they come. He's got the upside. So if you want to throw him in for upside, sure. But, not too big of a fan on that. Tennessee, Ryan Tannehill, he's been extremely consistent. So, yeah, keep plugging him in. Obviously, I don't love the matchup against Pittsburgh, but he's still going to be a top, border top 10 quarterback for me this week. Running back wise, Derrick Henry. Can you sit him after he gets 40 points? No. I don't care if it's Pittsburgh. I don't care if he just lost Taylor Lewan for the entire year. Pittsburgh just lost Devin Bush, which is the focal point. Not the focal point, but like the life of their... I think he's the Mike on their team. He's their starting middle linebacker, second-year rookie. Well, not second-year rookie. It's late, guys. But they lost Devin Bush, which definitely hurts the Pittsburgh defense. Derrick Henry's going to be fine. His yards per carry will probably be under 4, but at the end of the game, he'll have 30 carries for like 100 yards. So Derrick Henry will be fine. He'll probably get a touchdown, maybe even... He had 5 targets last week as well, so... Derrick Henry doing big things. Wide receivers, A.J. Brown. The Pittsburgh Steelers have actually been pretty weak in the secondary. They don't have any shutdown corners or anything like that. No safeties that are overly talented. It's really their front seven in Pittsburgh. T.J. Watt, that linebacking group, Cam Hayward. So that secondary is their weak spot. I think A.J. Brown's going to be a fine start this week. Corey Davis potentially coming back off COVID. I'm not sure. I'm not too worried about it. Adam Humphries, Jonnu Smith, I mentioned, he's questionable leading up to this week. If he plays, I'm definitely starting him. I know he had a down week, but he did get hurt pretty early. And, as far as tight ends go, the only 2 consistent tight ends in the entire league is George Kittle and Travis Kelce. Well, okay, I'm going to take it back. The only consistent tight end in the entire NFL is Travis Kelce. George Kittle has had 2 games where he just has not shown up, but he's still George Kittle. So when it comes to the tight end position, even if Delaney Walker didn't get hurt last game and he had 2 points, that's just the way it goes with tight ends. You're not going to get week to week 10-plus points. It doesn't happen at the tight end position anymore. Or not anymore, but at least this year, that's just kind of how it is. So a guy like Mike Gesicki, who last week had nothing, the week before had 14, the week before had like 8, the week before had like 20, the week before had like 4, this is just who the tight ends are. And Jonnu Smith, for the first 4 or 5 weeks, was very, very consistent. Last week, he came up short, and he got injured. He had a chance to catch a touch. If he had caught a touchdown, we wouldn't even be talking about this. So, if Jonnu Smith is playing, he's an every week plug and play. So, yeah. But I will say, if Jonnu Smith is out this week, Anthony Ferkser, who had the big game last week, is very, very, very much worth a look. So keep an eye. If you're a Jonnu Smith owner and you have an empty bench spot, then Anthony Ferkser might be like a good emergency player, right? So if Jonnu's out, you can throw Jonnu in the IR, pick up Ferkser, throw him in your lineup. I think that's a really great move. Other people might have saw what he did last week and might have already grabbed him, but if not, just keep an eye on that so you can make that move if needed. But yeah. Another thing, too, if you have an empty bench spot, throw Antonio Brown on there. He's available in most leagues, and he's going to be coming back in about 2 weeks. So, Antonio Brown also worth a look. Who do I think wins this game? That's tough. I don't want to spend too much time on that because I want to focus more on fantasy content. But I'll take Tennessee. I think they keep going. I think Ryan Tannehill is going to be an MVP this year. Carolina against New Orleans. Now, I mentioned to you guys that I'm not here to give you advice about the spreads and the over-unders. I'm not a professional at that. And if you take my advice, don't put a lot of money on it because, like I said, I don't do this I don't really bet that often. So, I do DraftKings often, but I don't really do the spreads and stuff like that often. 51 point, I think they can beat that. 7.5 spread. I think this is easy cover for Carolina. I mean, they've been competitive in just about every single game they've played. New Orleans have just been lackluster, to say the least. I think Carolina can easily cover 7.5 points, even after a down week last week. I think they bounced back. So I think Carolina could flat out win this game, and I would not put it past them, and I would not put it past the Saints for that to be the case. So Carolina Panthers, Teddy Bridgewater. I'm starting Teddy Bridgewater this game. Another reason too. I don't want to say it's not a revenge game, right? It's not a Teddy Bridgewater revenge game, but I think he's going to want to show out against his old team. Like, you could have kept me, and I could have been your franchise quarterback, but now I'm somebody else's franchise quarterback. I know he really liked New Orleans, and he wanted to stay there. So I think Teddy B is going to want to show out for this game. I do like him as a starting option. So I like Teddy B. Mike Davis, it's not a great matchup, and he had a down week last week due to a fumble and other stuff. But you're starting Mike Davis. Wide receiver wise, DJ Moore had 11 targets last week. Robbie Anderson, I think he had like 5 targets. So kind of a change of scenery. For a while it was Robbie over Moore, but last week it was Moore over Robbie, and that was, the Panthers are losing, and they want to make up parts of the field, and Teddy was looking for DJ Moore a lot, so we'll see if that trend continues. But I think both these guys are startable against the Saints. DJ Moore is going to draw coverage from Lattimore. It doesn't really bother me. Lattimore hasn't been anything great. New Orleans secondary has just been awful this year as a whole. So I do like both those guys, both Robbie and DJ Moore this week. As far as the Saints go, Drew Brees, no, just don't do it. I mean, it's a great matchup on paper, but Drew Brees just has been pretty bad this season. It's been pretty bad. Running back wise, Alvin Kamara, obviously you're starting him. Latavius Murray, emergency upside, but nothing crazy. No appeal there. Wide receiver wise, Michael Thomas. Look, if Michael Thomas is playing, obviously you're starting him, but he's still questionable. I mean, he was expected to play last week, but then he had a issue with the coach and all that, and then he got suspended by the team for one game. So hopefully Thomas gets back on the field, and if he does, he's going to be in my starting lineups. And with Michael Thomas being in my starting lineups, it makes me stay the hell away from Emmanuel Sanders, stay the hell away from Traquan Smith, stay the hell away from Jared Cook. It's going to be the Alvin Kamara and Michael Thomas show. So, and if Michael Thomas is out for whatever reason, then I think Emmanuel Sanders will continue his streak of really good games. So just keep an eye out on that for DFS as well. Who do I think is going to win? I think Carolina is going to win. It sounds crazy. If you told me last year Carolina was going to beat New Orleans, I'd say, what the hell? There's no way. But I do like Carolina in this game. All right, guys. You guys see those Crown Royal commercials on TV when you're watching the game? It's like water break. There's a guy at the end of the bar staring you down. Looks going to kill you if you don't take a water break. So I need to take a water break. Okay. Wow, Atlanta's a favorite in this game. We got Detroit going against Atlanta. Matt Stafford has looked very bad this year. There hasn't been any primetime Detroit games, so you probably haven't been able to see it. But he just has not looked good this year at all. It could be coming off injury, whatever it is. Matt Stafford has just not looked like his old self. So against Atlanta, I feel like this could be kind of a trap game. I feel like against Atlanta, like last week, we were expecting Kirk Cousins to have this big game. Justin Jefferson did have a good game, but Kirk Cousins just made a ton of mistakes. And I think they can kind of force Matt Stafford into doing some of that as well. So I'm not huge on Stafford this week, but I understand. So I'm not going to be looking at Stafford in DFS, which is what I'm pointing out to. Running back wise, I mean, and look, it's a high point total. I get it. But I don't know. I think it's more Atlanta. I think Atlanta's going to be about 70% of that points. Detroit, DeAndre Swift, he had that big game, but he still played under 40% of the snaps. Do I want to put the trust of my lineup in the hands of Matt Patricia? Absolutely the fuck not. I don't trust Matt Patricia if it was for my life. I think next week it could easily be Kerryon Johnson getting 40% of the snaps, Adrian Peterson getting however many carries, and then DeAndre Swift, he'll have some targets, but there's a chance he falls behind, and that's just kind of how this backfield works. So I would consider DeAndre Swift a flex play, but do not overreact to his big week against the Jaguars. Every running back has one of those against the Jaguars. So, Joe Mixon, 40 points. So, yeah, not crazy about DeAndre Swift, but I understand, I think he's definitely worth a flex. And if you're in a tough spot, one running back 2 is fine. But just know his floor is fairly low. Kenny Galladay on the outside, I looked at this and I said, wow, this is a really good matchup for Kenny Galladay. I think he's easily going to be in my DFS lineups. But at the same time, Kenny Galladay's been so hit or miss as well. He's been okay and he's been consistent. He's been getting 10 points, but he hasn't had that huge game. He has the opportunity to have that huge game here, but just I don't know if it's going to happen. I don't know how expensive Kenny Galladay is on DFS. I mean, look, if you have him on your team with the upside he has and who he is, you're definitely starting him. But I don't know. I just feel like the whole Detroit team is just a trap this week. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe everybody goes off, but who knows? Marvin Jones hasn't done anything. If he does something, like I said, if 55-point total, if Matt Stafford's having a good day, then I think it bodes pretty well. Oh. Okay, where are we? Down here. Okay. But if Matt Stafford's having a good game, then it bodes well for everybody else. So we'll see how that goes. Tight end-wise, TJ Hawkinson. Atlanta's been pretty crap against tight ends, so I think TJ Hawkinson's a great start this week. I'm going to try to speed this up a little bit. I don't know how long this video is already, but I feel like... What time is it now? Ooh. Yeah, okay, let's speed this up. Atlanta, I like Matt Ryan. Todd Gurley, hit or miss. Low running back 2 for me. Wide receivers, Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley, auto starts. Hayden Hurst, upside start. Similar to what I talked about, DeAndre Swift. His ceiling is just as high as his floor, so just know you're getting hit or miss. I talked about tight ends before, how they're very hit or miss as a whole. So, yeah, just know the upside is there. I like Atlanta over Detroit. Got a couple games here. We're not too far behind. We're getting to these 4 o'clock games now. 56-point total for the Seattle-Arizona game. Seattle 3.5-point favorites. Russell Wilson... Okay, apparently, historically, Russell Wilson has not been great against Arizona. In the statistics they looked at was more so what he did in the air. But I would attribute that to the fact of Arizona not being good and Seattle's tendency to just run the ball over the last 2 years. So the data I saw was taken over the last 2 years, Arizona being very, very bad, and Seattle just running like crazy. So I'm definitely fine starting Russell Wilson in this game. Chris Carson, running back 1 each week. Wide receiver wise, I think Tyler Lockett could bounce back in a divisional game, and DK Metcalf, as always, every week start. I'm not really a fan of any of these tight ends. As far as Arizona goes, Kyler Murray, great week for him coming up. Kenyon Drake, after last week, do you trust him? Because I don't. He's a sell high for me. But at the same time, I think he could still be worth a running back 2 option. Who knows? Maybe he picks it up. Maybe he's good for the rest of the year. But at the same time, I don't know. It depends what other options you have. I like Drake better than Todd Gurley. I think I like Gurley better than Drake this week. Who do I like Drake better than? Michael Perrine. I like him better than Singletary. Yeah, not that many people, but I don't hate him either. So I think he could be okay. Wide receiver wise, Kyler Murray did not do much of throwing the ball last week at all. But I think he's going to have to do a lot of that in this game. So I do really, really like DeAndre Hopkins. Bounce back this week. Christian Kirk, flex worthy. He's had a couple big games in a row. And we're not looking at any of the tight ends here. I think Seattle pulls away with it. coming off a bye, but I would not be surprised if Arizona did, if they're building off the momentum from last week. Kansas City, Denver. Kansas City is 10-point favorites, 46-point total. And that total tells me that the Chiefs are going to score 40 points and the Denver will score 6. So, obviously you love Mahomes. Le'Veon Bell's probably going to play in this game, but I assume he's going to be pretty limited. He's going to have to learn the system. Although we saw last year, LaShawn McCoy in his first game with the Chiefs, that was being signed the week prior. Although he's familiar with Andy Reid, so that doesn't really count. But yeah, I'm not going to start Le'Veon Bell this week. I'm still going to roll with Clyde Edwards-Helaire until proven otherwise. I think Bell is going to end up being the third down back if they're in a 2-minute drill. Then Le'Veon Bell. Anytime you see Darrell Williams, it'll be Le'Veon Bell and then a little more, right? So Darrell Williams has already been fairly involved, but I think Bell will do that and more. So I'm not fading Clyde Edwards-Helaire this week, but I'm not jumping on Le'Veon Bell either. Next week against the Jets, I will start Le'Veon Bell. I don't care if at the end of the Kansas City Denver game, if Le'Veon Bell has 2 touches. I am starting him against the Jets the following week. He's going to want all the touches he can against those teams. Against the Jets. So just keep an eye out for that. Tyreek Hill, divisional game. I like it. Mahomes didn't really have to throw the ball all that much. It was a rainy game. He didn't really have the opportunity to do so. And in Denver, you got Mile High. He's going to be able to air it out. So, yeah, I do like Tyreek Hill in this game a lot. Demarcus Robinson, he was getting targeted as a wide receiver too. He was playing that Sammy Watkins role. So if you're starting another Chiefs wide receiver, for me it's Demarcus Robinson, who's definitely flex worthy. Tight end wise, Travis Kelce, I mentioned he's the most consistent tight end in the entire NFL. There you have it. Denver, Drew Lock did not look good against the Patriots. Somehow they pulled away with the win. As a Patriots fan, I am ashamed. But Melvin Gordon potentially coming back from this mysterious illness coupled with a DUI. So it's going to be a messy backfield again with him and Lindsey, especially Lindsey coming off a 100-yard game. Especially Melvin Gordon coming back from illness and legal trouble. So I want no part in this backfield. Melvin Gordon probably end up being okay in this game, but I'm just not excited about it. So for DFS, I probably wouldn't consider Gordon, even though the Chiefs' run defense is not great. Wide receiver-wise, Tim Patrick, he had a 33% target share last week. So Tim Patrick seems like he's going to be the real deal. I want it to be Judy with all my might, but Tim Patrick's stealing the show. So if I'm starting a Denver wide receiver in my flex, it's going to be Tim Patrick. Tight ends, I mentioned Noah Fant briefly before. He is questionable leading up to this game, but he did practice today, and today's Wednesday. So normally Wednesdays would be like a rest day for like veterans or just, like an average rest day during the week, middle of the week. But the fact that he practiced today tells me a lot. So unless he gets downgraded to no practice Thursday or no practice Friday, if he's limited today, tomorrow, and Friday, then my expectation would be that he's playing. So good sign for Noah Fant, and I'm taking the Chiefs in this game. New England hosting San Francisco. New England's only 1.5-point favorites. As a Patriots fan, I am ashamed. Jimmy Garoppolo revenge game? Ooh, spicy. So I think this is Jimmy Garoppolo's first match against New England. I think Bill Belichick's he's gonna spook him. He's gonna spook Jimmy G. They know how he works. So I'm not looking to start Jimmy G this week. Running back wise, Raheem Mostert's going to be out, so it's going to be the Jerick McKinnon show. He's going to see a ton of targets out of the backfield. Wide receiver wise, I think Debo, my worry about him last week, and this is my fault because I just thought of him as something that he's not, but my worry with Debo last week was the fact that he would be lining up against Jalen Ramsey. And what actually happened was Debo did a ton of screens. He had a ton of slants. So Yeah, and he ended up scoring in one of those as well. So Debo's just one of those gadget guys. He's going to get rushing attempts. He's going to be used in different non-traditional wide receiver ways. So I think Debo's going to find a way as long as Jimmy G's not crap like he was 2 weeks ago when he got benched. Even though he's dealing with a high ankle sprain, by the way, which if you watch the Sunday night game, they explained how it's a lot for him to put pressure on his back right foot. But point being, they're using Debo Samuel in a lot of non-traditional wide receiver ways, so he's pretty much matchup proof in that sense. It's just about how much volume he's going to get. Other wide receivers, Brandon Ayuk, he scored a touchdown last week. That's great for my DFS team. But not too interested in him. Tight end, George Kittle. Obviously, he's going to be auto start. But just be aware. If you, for some reason, have a team with Travis Kelce and you have George Kittle, I would start Travis Kelce. Like, obviously, you're not sitting George Kittle for any other tight end. But, like, we saw what happened with Darren Waller against the Patriots. The Patriots, like, neutralized him. They took Darren Waller completely out of the game. And we could see something happen like that with George Kittle. So, obviously, if you have him, you got to keep him in because he's that good, you know. And Bill Belichick already acknowledged that. But, yeah, I mean, as far as the Patriots go, I'm expecting a bounce-back game for the Patriots. Cam Newton, he was coming straight off from having COVID. He had no team meetings at all leading up to the very start of the game. So the Patriots had no practice with each other. Cam Newton was just cleared. They had in and out of practice, whatever. Hopefully they're able to practice this week, and I think the Patriots are going to bounce back. They have some of their offensive linemen coming back. I believe the wide receivers are all. But the biggest thing is their offensive linemen that are going to be returning. I think Marcus Cannon is coming back, and some other guys. So, I think it's going to be a bounce back for New England. I think they're going to win this game outright. I'd probably take them in the spread. Cam, I'm okay starting him. They're at home. Running back wise, James White, he led the team in targets last week. And I want to see if this becomes more of a trend. We haven't seen a whole lot of James White with Cam Newton just because of, you know, the whole tragedy in James White with his father and his mother and stuff like that. But, yeah, so I want to see more of James White with Cam. But the 9 targets last week was very promising. As far as these wide receivers, I think it's a bounce-back game for Julian Edelman. I think it's a bounce-back game. Potentially for N'Keal Harry. Damiere Byrd has been more involved than I would have thought. But, yeah, so I think Julian Edelman can be okay this game. My expectations are not high at all. But I think he can still get you 10 points at the end of the day. Tight end, we're not looking at any of the tight ends there. Jacksonville and LA. So Jacksonville, LA's 7.5 point favorites. Interesting. Chargers defense is one of my favorite streamers this week. So I do like them. 49 point total. Oh, by the way, 44 point total is fairly low. I think it's going to be more of a high scoring game. When I say high scoring game, maybe like 48, 49. I'll be surprised if they hit 50 total, but not impossible. 49 point total for Jacksonville and LA actually isn't bad at all. Gardner Minshew, I think he's going to struggle a little bit in this game. He's been struggling lately, so he's probably going to be riding my bench. I have a league which is 2 quarterbacks. I have Teddy Bridgewater and Gardner Minshew, and I have Gardner Minshew on my bench this week. So and I also have Kyler Murray, so that explains that. But probably not starting Gardner Minshew. James Robinson, he's come back down to earth a little bit, but he's still been pretty consistent. He's still getting 10 plus each week. He's still getting involved in the passing game a lot, which is helping him. So James Robinson's still a start for me. Wide receiver wise, I think DJ Chark had 14 targets last week. And the Chargers secondary is actually pretty good. But I think you still got to start DJ Chark as a decent flex wide receiver 2 option. Laviska Shenault has the better matchup than the slot. But I want to, he wasn't really targeted all that much. Keelan Cole has been just this thorn in DJ Chark and Laviska Shenault's value. So that's fun. Crown Royal Water Break. I'm not sponsored by them. But I feel my throat. Um, don't like the tight ends for the Jaguars. As far as the Chargers, I think it's a huge game for Justin Herbert. Love Justin Herbert this week. He's a top 10 quarterback for me this week. Running back wise, Justin Jackson picked up an injury during the bye week or during practice. So if Justin Jackson can't go and it's just Joshua Kelly, I think Joshua Kelly's going to have a great game. So I think Joshua Kelly and Justin Jackson are both worth flex consideration against the Jaguars. As I mentioned, they just get ran on like no other. So I like both those guys as flex options. If Justin Jackson is out, then Joshua Kelly is going to be an easy DFS plug-in for me. Wide receiver wise, Keenan Allen, when he's played with Justin Herbert, has just been a target hog. So, and Keenan Allen, I believe he had cramps or back spasms 2 weeks ago. He'll probably be limited practice, but I'm not expecting him to miss this week's game. Mike Williams, someone to keep an eye out for. Maybe something sparked after their last week together. And Hunter Henry, as always, he's pretty cheap on DraftKings. He's like $4,500. So, yeah, Hunter Henry is probably going to be one of those tight ends I target there. I think Chargers are going to outright win this. This matchup here, we got Tampa Bay going against the Las Vegas Raiders. So the Raiders beat the Chiefs and Tampa Bay beats Green Bay. So pretty interesting. I think this matchup is going to be closer than a lot of people think. 51-point total. This could be like a 4-touchdown game from Tom Brady, 3-4 touchdown. Ronald Jones, even with Leonard Fournette coming back, I think Ronald Jones is still going to be a shoo-in to have a good game on the ground. He's just probably going to lose a lot of targets in the air. So I do really like Ronald Jones still. Leonard Fournette, I'm not really all that interested in, coming off an injury that has kept him out for a lot longer than we thought he would be out. As far as the wide receivers go, I mean, this is typical Tom Brady, spreading the ball. I mean, last week out of nowhere, Rob Gronkowski led the whole team in targets. Mike Evans had 2 targets. Chris Godwin was second on the list, but nobody was close to Gronk. So I feel like Mike Evans at this point is like low wide receiver 2, and Chris Godwin is like high wide receiver 2, because Chris Godwin's getting the volume, and he wasn't completely 100% healthy last week. So hopefully that changes going to this week. Chris Godwin's still a decent start for me. Mike Evans, lowering my expectations a lot, but he still has a touchdown upside. Is Gronk streamable? Is Gronk startable in this matchup? I don't know. I don't think that's something that's going to stick. I think it was like a nice, like, oh, Gronk had a big game. Like, yay, good for him. Like, we knew this would happen with Gronk, right? Like, we knew there's games where he's not even going to be targeted, and we know there's games that he's going to show up, he's going to get a touchdown. So, I'm not expecting anything consistent out of Gronk. I mean, is there a chance he has a big game? Sure, but I'm not expecting anything. I think we're going to see a lot more bad games than we are going to see good games. As far as the Raiders here, don't love Derek Carr here. Josh Jacobs, pretty bad matchup for him. In a situation to keep an eye on, all 5 of the Raiders' offensive linemen were sent home because Trent Brown was diagnosed with COVID. So the entire Raiders' offensive line is home, and if none of them can play on Sunday, I don't know if this game is going to be played, and it's going to be messy. So John Gruden says he hopes to get some guys back by Sunday. So we'll see. COVID's getting fun. Just a situation to keep an eye on for Josh Jacobs owners. Wide receiver-wise, Henry Ruggs, I mean, not interested in him. More interested in just Darren Waller. I think that's going to be the best way to move the ball in this type of game. We know Darren Waller to have those big blow-up games, and this could be one of them. Probably going to be playing from behind, and they're going to need an effective way to move the ball. So I think Tampa Bay comes out with the win on this one. Why? Somebody tell me why in the last 2 weeks the Rams have had 2 primetime games. Does anybody care? I'm sorry if you're a Rams fan, but I don't really care about the Rams. And Chicago, so many primetime games for Chicago too. Nobody wants to see Nick Foles. I want to see Allen Robinson. I love Allen Robinson, but I don't want to see Nick Foles. 45-point total. Yeah, that's a pretty low scoring game. Are the Rams 6-point favorites? Am I reading that right? What have the Rams done to prove that they're 6-point favorites over the 5-1 Chicago Bears? I know the Rams are at home, but come on now. That's a little ridiculous. I'm going to have to put some money in Chicago in this matchup. But, yeah, so Nick Foles, I'm actually streaming him in one league. I don't know why. I really don't know why. I'm not expecting a big game from him. He's going to have Aaron Donald breathing down his neck, Jalen Ramsey. He's going to make mistakes. He's probably going to have 1 or 2 turnovers. But, you know, he could end up turning it up at the end of the game if he puts on his, Meek Mill or whoever he listened to at halftime the last game. Running back wise, David Montgomery's an every week start. Whether he gets the production on the ground or not, he's playing 85% of the snaps, and he's getting heavily targeted out of the backfield. So, David Montgomery, every week start. Allen Robinson, he did just enough to get you through the week last week. I'm expecting a better week this week, even against Jalen Ramsey. I'm not too worried about that. Jimmy Graham, 8 targets last week. Fire him up if you're in a tight spot at tight end. He's actually not bad. The Rams, Jared Goff, not excited about him. Chicago's defense has actually been pretty good. Darrell Henderson, awful matchup for him. Wasn't able to get it done last week without the 2 touchdowns, as I mentioned in last week's video. And maybe Cam Akers starts to get more involved. Cam Akers played 2% of the snaps, so I'm not holding out for that. I think this is much more of a Robert Woods Cooper Kupp type game. And I'm not looking forward to the tight end. So much more of a wide receiver game for the Rams here. And I'm going to take Chicago here. 6 point. I don't understand how the Rams are 6-point favorites, but I'm going to have to jump on the DraftKings Sportsbook after this and put some money on that one. So, yeah, that's going to do it for Week 7. Appreciate you guys watching. I hope I lived up to all your expectations. Next week, what I'll do is I'll try to do more of looking into the DraftKings value plays and stuff like that. That way I can give you guys a little more of that. But overall, if you guys have any other feedback, I'd definitely love to hear it. As you guys can see, I definitely took it into account. Like and subscribe if you're new to the channel. And if you're here from Instagram, I appreciate you. And I will see you guys next time.